about 20, 21 people in our small group, our life group. Great friends. We were doing all sorts of life things together.
Absolutely.
We were involved in different ministry opportunities together. We did lots of events. We fed the Next Step class one time. That was kind of fun.
That was awesome.
We did.
We had just finished a giant Christmas party with White Elephant Griffs, and that was an awesome experience.
Yeah, I think we ended up having like 40 people, más o menos, to that when you include the kids.
Absolutely,
It was a good time, but.
One of the things I noticed in our life group was that we began to become extremely comfortable with each other, which has positives, but it can have some negative effects as well. Extremely comfortable in that we're not growing and we're not stretching and we're not pushing forward. We're just kind of stagnating.
We became really almost too comfortable. We would allow things from each other that we probably wouldn't have allowed for somebody else.
Absolutely.
And we became really focused on that, the fellowship more so than the spiritual growth. And,
Absolutely.
I think that's a fair assessment of where we were.
I think so.
It wasn't not just for Christians. We were having fun with each other. We had grown so close that I think we lost some of that individual spiritual growth, and that iron sharpens iron. We were, remember the Bible study we were talking, and Gary, you had the Bible study on about how water can become stagnant.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And that's when I know that you guys had talked about it for you and Becky, but that's when I was thought about, with James and Richard, and how we became stagnant, and how could we stir up the water.
How can we encourage growth, both spiritually within ourselves, but also help growth within the church, bringing other believers into a small group? We were at 21 people. We just were too big to grow any bigger for a small group or a life group. Was just
prayer request took 45 minutes.
Everything. And just coming in and getting things settled and those sorts of things as well.
Right.
And so at that point, and we had also been talking with Gary too about how the fact what life group is about is you get to a point and then you do have to separate so that others can come in and experience what we've had to experience and those sorts of things. So Lord had started weighing things on my heart at that point. And just as we talk about how God allows things to fall into place, it was the creating of different circumstances to bring us three together to come to that decision that this is going to be the best decision to move forward. Yes.
And then so what happened was, I called you.
Yes.
And Gary's been busting her chops for 3 years to split.
Yeah, absolutely. I had several conversations as well with Gary.
Yeah. So what are you doing? But so we had a phone call and we talked to Gary and we talked to each other. And then,
well, right before that, I had a conversation with Gary. I had breakfast with Gary. And
so he was trying to recruit you too.
He was trying to suck me in behind the scenes, So, but I had breakfast with Gary, and I asked Gary, I says, what is it that the church needs? What can I do? What can we do to help the growth and the spirituality of the church? And out of that conversation, he says, well, think about leading your own life group. And then I get a phone call from Steve that he talked to Gary. Gary talking to me, Steve talking to James, and James and I were kind of in our own world, thinking the same things, thinking the same thoughts, thinking the same patterns, and then all of a sudden we were brought together and says, hey, that would be a great idea. And then it grew into a conversation of not just having a group leader, but having a leadership team, a leadership core in the group, where James and Janice would be the host, and maybe Becky and I would do more of the teaching. We can rotate that around, maybe bringing in a third person to help with some of the teaching. That way, and kind of spread the responsibility of a life group through a team versus an individual or a couple.
And burdening one couple with having to host the event and then having to prepare, mentally for, what the message was going to be.
impact on us in the beginning was very scary.
Absolutely.
Because felt like we were kind of stepping out on a limb, kind of stepping out on faith. So it was us and Richard and Rhonda Hash. So
Six of
it was
us.
six of us,
Six of us.
which gave us a good core to get started with.
And we also did it on the summer, which gave us time without a lesson, and I'm not saying that that's necessarily the best time or not the best time, but for
It's
us,
just
for
the
our,
time
this,
we did it.
this 6 people that moved forward, these 3 couples that did that, it was a great time because it gave us time to connect with each other, regroup before others came in. I think one thing that helped our group, and this is me, and maybe I'm wrong, but the way that Gary laid out the lesson plan and the steps, or leadership did that this year, where we started off, the first thing we did is we took time to pray, and everybody prayed, and that kind of would set the tone for the meeting, is everybody, the men and the women, and it didn't matter who prayed when or where.
Right.
Usually
Yeah,
Shannon
rotate.
or me would start it, didn't really matter, and then we would go, and then that would set the tone, and then it allowed people to open up and to feel vulnerable, because in order to open up and to feel part of the group, they have to feel as though the trust and those sorts of things, and that's one of the other things we always speak of, and started with Steve's group, is that what happens in life group stays in life group, and if without that trust and without that covenant, people can't do life together because they've got the wall there, so.
That helped break down that.
That
And
break
then the
down
first
wall.
time we did that, some of us in the group, particularly the ladies, seemed to be a little intimidated by it and a little uncomfortable with it the very first time. The second time it was easier. The third time it was just flew. It just came natural.
Absolutely.
And so it was a growing experience for all of us. On the downside, man, we miss some of our friends from the old group. We love them. We miss them. We wish we could be more involved in their lives. But we just have to understand that God's calling us to grow in that area. Not that we can't be friends or we can't love on Steve. He's our buddy. We had breakfast with him just a few days ago. But the closeness in the relationship,
Yeah, it changed.
it changed.
It did.
It changed significantly.
It was.
But that change, I think, is necessary and is needed so that we can open up our homes and open up our lives to new people so we can grow the body of Christ.
Absolutely, and that's what I've found is that pain is a big motivator. When things are going great, people usually don't scream out for Jesus. It's usually when they're in trouble or there's pain.
Absolutely.
There's growth in pain. There really is. And it was hard. It was hard for all of us. We were talking yesterday, particularly the women. It was harder on the women than, I think so, than on the men, because they're more relational beings and they can't compartmentalize. But it was difficult. It was difficult. My group, what's left, we took off. We didn't want anybody new coming into the group. We weren't about growing because we were, no offense meant to y'all, I love them, and I told them this the other day. We felt like we were the wife that was left and the husband went away. And we were trying to pick up the pieces. And while your mature Christians left to go start the group, that left us with some newer Christians, and they felt abandoned, and they felt not betrayed. That's not the right word. They felt abandoned.
Yeah.
So I didn't want anybody new coming in the group, and we focused on growing together. And while Shannon and James and Richard were always my go-to guys with questions or insights, it allowed some of the younger guys to verbalize, step up and grow a little in their walk. So, in the hindsight, some of the better things that we've learned through this is, I think the way that we did it with a core group of more mature Christians made sense. You can't send new believers
Right.
on themselves.
Yeah,
That would
absolutely.
fool. And I think there needs to be more communication with the group ahead of time.
Yes.
While our leadership had great plans and great ideas, and
We came in, did it.
we're good.
Deal with it,
This
y'all.
is the plan. And then it was bad.
That was bad.
It was bad.
We went too fast.
There was a lot
Too
of
much, too fast.
Yes, too much, too fast.
So I think the way to prevent this going forward is that type of the pain.
Open
Pain is
discussion.
necessary. Yeah, it has to be open
You're going to have the
discussions.
pain no matter what.
But
Preparing for
you
it.
can prepare for the pain. That makes when you get a needle, they usually say there's going to be a pinch. not,
Absolutely.
And then, knowing when you're starting your small group that this is the intent altogether. It's not about us. It's not supposed to be about us. It's all supposed to be
It's like
about
the
Him.
body of Christ.
And when we focus on that, that makes it a little bit more easier. When we're focused on just the personal side of the group, the relational thing, nobody wants to split, but it ain't about what you want.
Well, and it's exactly what you spoke of earlier. It's not about us, it's about Him.
Yeah.